Cool, I think everybody's here, so we can get started. Hello everybody, my name is Patrick Chanezon. I've been a developer advocate at Google since 5 years. I was actually the first one hired to do developer stuff at Google. And I've been to Brazil twice already, GDD last year and some DevFest a few years before. So I've met a few friendly faces here. So like Eric Tolomé, I am very French, like you can see in my accent. And like Eric said, in France we like camembert and wine and cheese. This is Super Dupont, that's our national hero. But we also like to work with our heads, like in this case. However, contrarily to Eric, I think soccer is just an area where France and Brazil just get along together really well, like this picture proves. And so let's talk about cloud computing. That's the topic of my talk today. Okay, so just a reminder, there's a mobile agenda for GDD, so if you have an Android or a smartphone, you can get there and you can give feedback about the session in there. And you can see all the agenda and all that. So today we're going to talk about cloud computing. There are two talks about it. This one will be about our platform as a service offering, which is Google App Engine and Google App Engine for Business. And then I have another talk this afternoon, if you're interested, about our new infrastructure as a service services, which is Google Storage for developer, the Prediction API, and BigQuery. So if you're interested in cloud computing, come to both. Today we're going to talk about Google App Engine, the new features in Google App Engine, a little bit about the roadmap, some details about Google App Engine for Business, which is the new thing that we unveiled at Google I/O in May, and that is in Trusted Tester right now. And then we have a guest speaker, Phillip Clean from Bitbucket. He's going to tell us, Mario this morning told us about the business aspect of how Bitbucket is using App Engine, and he's going to tell us about the technical aspect. And I think he's driving from the airport right now. So before I get started, I'd like to know a little bit more about you guys. Who here is using some kind of cloud platform, whether Amazon or Microsoft or Google? Okay, not that many. I guess it's less than 5%. Any Google App Engine users here already? Wow, the same 5%. So all of you guys are using App Engine. That's great. That's a good start. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing, there are lots of talks about this these days because it became fashionable. It started to become fashionable this summer when Gartner has this hype cycle for technology adoption. And this summer, cloud computing started to get at the top of the hype curve, which means that during the year it's going to go down into the trough of disillusionment. But we don't care about that because we're developers. We're just going to build stuff with that kind of infrastructure. If you're interested in definitions about cloud computing, there's a great talk, I forgot his name, at OSCON by a guy named Simon. I forgot his last name. Very good talk where he goes over the 15 different definitions of cloud computing. Basically, to me, cloud computing is all about industrialization of software infrastructure. Industrialization and automation. There's a great book by Nick Carr that's called The Big Switch that explains that what we're going through right now is a revolution similar to the industrialization of electricity at the beginning of the 20th century, where basically we're going, instead of each company having their own data center, you're going to use some utility computing and just pay in a metered way. And that's exactly how electricity was industrialized at the beginning of the 20th century, when every company had their own power generators, and they started buying electricity from utilities that built huge plants. So we're seeing that move in computing these days. It started, I should say, around 10 years ago, and right now it's reaching critical mass where you start to have real utility computing that is available. What's really interesting about this field is that it's blooming. There's tons of startups as well as big companies experimenting with various facets of that. So the market is quite complicated, and there are lots of different offerings in there. The way the analysts traditionally view that market is with 3 layers. The first one is infrastructure as a service. That's what companies like Giant or Amazon are doing. Basically, it's renting VMs. You just provision your VMs in the cloud. It's very flexible, but the disadvantage of it is that you still have to manage all that stuff. And so there are some companies like RightScale that provide you some admin consoles for managing all that, but still there's lots of work to provision all the VMs and build your own scalable infrastructure on top of that. On top of that, there's another layer called platform as a service. This is what Google App Engine is. In a platform, and there are some other offerings like Windows, Azure, or Force.com. The concept of platform as a service is you write your code, you push it to the cloud, and then the cloud provider manages everything, like the load balancers, the number of front-end servers, number of back-end servers and replication, the data store and replication between different data centers. So the disadvantage of these platforms is that you need to abide by the limitations of the platform provider. So I'll tell you about Google App Engine. There are a few limitations in there. For example, you need to code in Java or Python. If you do PHP, you're obliged to go to infrastructure as a service. But if you abide by these limitations, it buys you a lot of flexibility. You just can concentrate on your code, and you don't need to worry about scalability. And then at the top layer of that is software as a service, which is what Google Apps or Salesforce.com are about. And there's a big explosion of software as a service these days. Most software is becoming as a service. And as companies are building more and more of type of software that used to be done as client applications provided as a service, they more and more rely on cloud computing for that. The way I describe Google's exposure of cloud computing is pretty much like a striptease. So we started with software as a service with Google Apps. We provided Gmail and Google Docs and all that for companies. After that, we just unveiled one layer and we exposed our platform, which is Google App Engine. And then more recently, we started unveiling even more and starting to expose our infrastructure like Google Storage for developers. So I talked about the value proposition for infrastructure as a service. It's very flexible, but you still have to manage all that stuff yourself. Now, platform as a service, much easier. Google App Engine's value proposition, Eric talked about it this morning. I won't go over that for long. It's like build, manage, and scale. It's easy to do all that. And our motto in the App Engine team is we wear the pagers, so you don't have to. And I think it's a pretty good explanation of what we do. Numbers are really good. I think Eric showed them this morning. 90,000 developers, 130K apps, and 700 million daily page views. This is a Wordle, like a tag cloud of words about App Engine. It's all about applications and data and requests and data store. Lots of partners, lots of companies have started using App Engine for their apps. Initially, when we launched App Engine in 2008, the first type of companies who adopted it en masse were mobile and social companies. Companies who have a hockey stick curve type of adoption where from 1 week to the other they have 2 more million users, and there's no way they could manage that if they had their own infrastructure. So for these type of companies like BuddyPoke and Orkut, App Engine was really a boon. now that App Engine has matured and we have added lots of feature, there are more and more enterprise companies and ISVs who start to build their apps on top of App Engine. And Bitbucket is going to come talk at the end of this talk to explain their experience. Social Work is another good example. They're doing social networking for enterprises, and they're integrated with Google Apps in the Google Apps Marketplace. Best Buy is another example of enterprise use. Buddy Poke, very famous on Orkut, and they've been one of our poster children since the beginning. Lots of social apps like Gigia as well. And what's interesting about Gigia is if you look at the kind of spikes here, so you see the spike there. App Engine is very good at managing spikes. So why App Engine? I talked about that before. If you're hosting by yourself, or either you have lots of hidden costs. If you're using infrastructure as a service, you have lots of hidden costs as well. You need to manage all that stuff. So what's in App Engine? So you have SDK, the hardware, networking. We take care of everything, but you're limited to 2 languages, Java and Python. In terms of features, we provide you a lot of services that are just connectors to internal infrastructure at Google in the form of APIs. So the services we have are Memcache, the data store, which is called Bigtable, URL fetch, mail, XMPP, task queues, images, blobstore to store big files, and a user service. 2 language runtimes. We try to make App Engine use standards whenever we can, so that you can port your app outside of App Engine if you want to. In order to do that, what we do is that we use standards whenever they exist. So for example, App Engine in Python is using the WSGI, which is the standard for Python apps, and you can run Django applications there. For Java, we're using servlets and GDO, GPA. For the URL fetcher, we're using java.net URL, Java XMail for the mail and all that. So we try not to reinvent APIs. And the result of that is that there are some developers who took the App Engine SDK, which is open source. And the App Engine SDK is open source. You can run it on your laptop to just do your development. And when you're finished, you push it to the production server. Some developers at a university in the US, they created this open source project called, I think it's Python IE, where they took the App Engine SDK and they plugged it into scalable components. Oh no, it's called AppScale. So they plugged that to scalable open source components, like for example, they replaced Bigtable with Hadoop DB, so that now you can run your private cloud inside of your company if you want to, and use the same technology that you're using with App Engine. So that kind of ensures portability. Another aspect that's interesting is that because we have Java, there are lots of languages that run on top of the VM. So Scala, JRuby, so you can build Rails application with App Engine using JRuby. Groovy, Quarkus is a version of PHP that runs on top of App Engine, but I'm not sure how solid it is. I haven't tried it myself. You can do JavaScript with Rhino, and there are even people using Jython on top of Java instead of using App Engine Python, because they want to use other Java APIs. The pricing for App Engine, it's free to get started. You have 5 million page views per month, a free quota. So that's a lot. That means that as long as your application don't get serious volume, App Engine is free for you. Then if you start to get into the more than 5 million page views, you pay for what you're using. But at this point, we expect that you'll be able to monetize your app. And so you're paying for bandwidth and CPU and storage and all that. So there's a dashboard that shows all your application health and stats, and you can view the data store and all that. And there's a system status console. In terms of developer tools, we have the App Engine Launcher that's used for Python, and I'll show you that. And then and there's a console in there that you can use. There's a plugin for Eclipse, and it's constantly evolving. So that's the timeline for the past 2 years. Basically, when you look App Engine, if you looked at App Engine in 2009, you should take a look again, because there are lots of capabilities that have been added since then. So the big things were the Python launch, the Java launch, and then App Engine for Business in May. But in between these releases, we add lots of more features. So something that were pretty important was XMPP support, incoming email. There are some companies like TweetDeck who use App Engine only for the email service, because they found that this is the cheapest way to send email that they found. The blobstore for storing large files, and then later on an additional API for serving images in a very fast way, where we reuse the Picasa infrastructure. AppStats, if you're an App Engine developer, I highly recommend to look at that tool. It really lets you, it's a server-side profiler. It really lets you see which pieces of your code are taking the longest time to run. Async URL fetch allows you to fetch many URLs in parallel in the same request. And then OpenID OAuth and a better bulk loader back in May. So what's new? One of the new things is a multi-tenant API. It's called the namespace API. It allows you to, it makes it easier for you to build multi-tenant applications. So first time I heard about multi-tenant, it was all in the Salesforce lingo, and I thought, oh, what the heck is that? Well, what does that mean? And what that means is very simple. It means you have just one web application, and it can be used by many different domains. And each of these domains will have separate data stores. So instead of provisioning separate apps and separate data stores, you just use the same app, same data store, but then you just have an API to say, oh, when I'm making this call into the data layer, just prefix it with this namespace, which corresponds, for example, to the company domain or something like that. And then you don't need to worry about it. So that's a very easy way to build these multi-tenant apps. And it's especially important because more and more Google Apps Marketplace applications are using App Engine, and they need to be multi-tenant in order to participate in the marketplace. High-performance image serving, I told you that. Now when you put an image in the blobstore, instead of it being served relatively slowly from the blobstore, you can elect to use the Picasa service to just serve your image really fast and cropped at a certain size and all that. OpenID and OAuth integration, error pages. We increased lots of the quotas that were limits for developers. You can now post task queues from the console, and there's lots of stuff. You should check our blog for all the features. Now, there are 3 up-and-coming features that I think are really important and will help you build a new kind of app in App Engine. App Engine traditionally has been targeted at just building web apps. But there's lots of stuff in a web app that needs to happen asynchronously, where you're messaging your data, you do migrations, you clean up your data, you do reporting and all that. All that aspect has slowly evolved into App Engine, first with the task queues, and now there's 3 APIs in the pipe that will help you do this heavy-duty processing. First one is called the Mapper API. Who among you have heard about MapReduce? Any MapReduce users here? Okay, so for those of you who haven't, I highly recommend the MapReduce papers that was done by Googlers maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago. MapReduce is it's a notion that comes from 30 years ago from Lisp. But it's been re-implemented in C++ by Googlers like 8 years ago in order to build our batch processing pipeline. So MapReduce is what we're using internally at Google to compute the search ranking and do a lot of background processing, batch processing that happens asynchronously. The concept of MapReduce is very simple. You just have, instead of building a long program that will act on your data, you just cut it down into small parts containing two essential operations. One is called map, that selects a specific set of data from all the data stream that you're going through. And all this is happening in parallel on lots of different servers. And then the second one, once your mapper has done their job, they can push the entries that they have done into a reducer, into a reduce operation. And reduce takes lots of records and then reduces them to a single data or a single record or something like that. And this is a very simple concept, but if you can reduce lots of your processing to this paradigm, it lends itself very well to parallelization. So once you have coded your stuff in MapReduce, basically you can have the underlying infrastructure, run it in parallel on thousands of servers and huge sets of data. So in App Engine today, we don't have reduce yet, but we have map. And map can be very useful. So what map allows you to do is, for example, to do report generation or to clean up your data store. For example, you could have a map that would just go over all your records and look for a specific field and remove it. Brett Slatkin from the App Engine team, who's maintaining the PubSub Hubbub project. If you want to hear more about that, come to my social session later. So he has a huge PubSub Hubbub public hub that's used by lots of people with, I think, maybe a terabyte of data, like huge number of records, millions of records in there. And this is an App Engine app, and he was one of the first ones to use the mapper. And what he did is that all his data was taking too much space, so he just wrote a map, sent it to the mapper, and said, just execute this. And the map was a few lines of code just to remove one field from all that. And I think it ran non-stop for 8 days or something like that on lots of servers. And I need to put the link in there, but he put a buzz entry about this, and it was pretty impressive. So Mapper API is coming soon. Another important aspect for building apps is something called Comet, which is where the server is pushing some data to your client. For example, when you're in Gmail, you receive notification that your Gmail, there's new mail for you. So in order to build that kind of apps in App Engine, it was impossible before, because you have a 30-second limit for every HTTP request. So after that, there's no way to keep a connection open to the server, so you had to pull. In order to make that kind of apps possible, we're releasing a new API called the Channel API. That's a conjunction of a client-side library and a server-side component API that will basically allow you to use an API that's very similar to WebSocket in HTML5 in App Engine apps. And what that allows you to do is to have some task queues on the server that can push some results to the browser. So that's pretty impressive, and there's some demo code already. If you want to participate in this one, it's in Trusted Tester right now. It's not generally available yet. And then the last one that was announced last week in the Google group for developers is called the Matcher API. So Matcher API allows you to register some queries to match against incoming documents in the database, but future documents. So it's not like map, where map is acting on your existing database. Here, you're setting matchers for specific criteria on the future stuff that's going to enter your database. And then we have some powerful infrastructure that's going to run that in parallel in a very efficient way, instead of running task queues by yourself, where basically your criteria or your query is going to be executed every time there are some new documents coming in the system, and then that query can do something with it, like increment a counter, create a new record, send an email, or whatever. So this one is in Trusted Tester as well, and I think there's a sign-up sheet in the Google group. I'll push my slide on SlideShare a little bit after this talk, so you can find all these URLs. Now the App Engine roadmap. I think Eric talked about it this morning. We have a bunch of stuff in the pipe. For me, the most exciting one is background servers. One of the things that you cannot do with App Engine, it's not designed for that, is to have long-running processes. Like they do some... So we have task queues which are limited to a specific time. That can run in the background, but these background services, you could connect to them, and so you can implement a much richer set of applications with that. So these ones are on the pipeline. All the rest, dump and restore, like all the rest is like pretty much, we talked about it. Another important aspect is reserved instance. Reserved instances are available in Trusted Tester today, so if you need that, ping me and I'll put you on the list for that. Reserved instances allow you to book, an instance, a specific instance for your App Engine app. When you push your App Engine app to App Engine, you don't know which server you're running on, how many instances there are. You don't have any control of that, and that's the whole promise of platform as a service. Now, in some cases, that's a problem. Like, for example, when you're using heavy frameworks in Java that take a long time to load, the first request is going to cost a lot. So there's going to be a lot of these 30 seconds that is taken by the framework loading. And it's even worse when you're running interpreted languages on top of the VM, like JRuby, for example. So for that type of apps, it's really slow to start. And because that's a problem, reserved instances, you will be able to pin down your application to a few instances, and that way you'll pay that price for the warming request only once. And you can do that at startup. So that should solve a lot of problems. Now, Google App Engine for Business. So that's the new stuff that's been announced at Google I/O last year. It's very similar to Google App Engine, but it's trying to address a different use case, which is lots of people are building public web apps with Google App Engine, but since 2008 when we shipped it, I've been talking to lots of companies, and they come to me and they say, oh, we like the flexibility, we like not to have to worry about all that infrastructure stuff, we like to use App Engine for building our internal apps. But basically, you guys are bozos. There's no SLA, there's no paid support, there's no SQL support. I need that because I have some existing apps, so I just cannot use it. So basically what we did is that we responded to this market demand by creating Google App Engine for Business to specifically address this use case of building internal apps for companies, for intranet type of applications. So App Engine for Business is the same platform as App Engine with a few enterprise-specific features in there. So the first one is what we call the domain console that allows you to provision your apps from a single console for the whole intranet. So you don't need to depend on the main namespace from appspot.com. You can create whatever apps in there directly in the console. There's a 3.9 SLA. There's premium developer support. There's SQL support as well. And so that will be available as part of App Engine for Business. SSL for your domain. But then this is targeted at enterprise apps, which means these are apps where you're building internal apps, and you're a company who have bought Google Apps for your domain, so every user will have a Google Apps for your domain login, and all these apps will be authentified. So you need to authentify in order to go to these apps. You cannot build apps that are public on the web. And the pricing is different. So the pricing is $8 per active user per month for and per application. So all that stuff, this is the status of that. So the admin console is in preview. If you're interested in trying it out for your enterprise, contact me and I'll put you on the list. Direct phone support as well. Hosted SQL, it was available since 2 or 3 weeks. It's very recent. So if you have a use case and want to play with that, shoot me an email. I wanted to do a demo, but I will lack time. And billing and all that will come later in this quarter. Okay. So now maybe I will do. Let me see. I will just show you a very quick demo before Phillip can come in. So, yeah, I know. Let me show you my console. So this is my, actually this is my regular console. So that's my regular console for App Engine. That's what it looks like. Here I was looking at the logs. I actually deployed my first SQL app today. I've been whitelisted last week. And I can show you the SQL app in, so this is just a servlet in Java. So that's in Eclipse. So I have a servlet here. It's a very simple servlet. I just register the new driver, SQL driver that we have in there. So I get a connection to my database. And then I can execute SQL commands. It's just a GDD-BR driver. So that's what I did, and I just deployed it before coming here. So yeah. Today it just inserts a statement in the database. I need to make that example a little bit better. Just wanted to show you that that stuff works. But then I wanted to show you the admin console. So this is the new domain console. I have it for my Chanezon.com domain where I manage all my family's applications. So let's say I'm a small business and I have this console. And here you can see that I have a few applications. And I could create a new application. And it's an App Engine for Business application. And it's going to be automatically in my x.chanezon.com domain extension. I created there, and I don't need to go to the regular App Engine console. Then the new admin console also lets me do things like specify who in my company is allowed to do what. And then this is an example of an App Engine for Business application for my domain, where here you can see I have deployed, it's an open source blogging engine written by Nick Johnson, one of my colleagues. It's called BlogArt, and I deployed it in App Engine for Business inside of my domain, which means that if a user on the internet who's not logged into my domain just tries to get there, so I'm just going to create a new incognito window, so I'm not logged in here. If I go there, he will ask me to log into the Chanezon family. So I need to be part of the domain to use that. And just to deploy that, you just check out the code, put your app ID in there, and deploy it. It takes 5 minutes. So on that, I'm welcoming Phillip Clean from Predicta and Bitbucket. He's going to tell us about the technical aspect of how they use App Engine. Thanks for coming, Phillip. He just comes back from the airport, so thanks for coming today. You have this one.
Hello, hello. Boa tarde, todo mundo. Quer dizer, bom dia ainda. Boa tarde para mim, que eu acabei de chegar de um voo internacional. Vim direto de Guarulhos e eu saí do avião correndo, nem parei para ir no banheiro ainda. Vou tentar não falar muito rápido, tá? Eu vim contar aqui em 10 minutos a história do Bitbucket, que é uma empresa, uma startup brasileira, usando o App Engine, e como essa plataforma proporcionou para a gente um posicionamento ímpar no mundo. Para quem não conhece o Bitbucket, BitBuckets é uma ferramenta de personalização, de target comportamental, de on-site behavioral targeting, que significa que você instala uma tag no seu site, como a tag de Google Analytics, e através da nossa ferramenta você consegue atualizar o conteúdo, as mensagens, baseado nos segmentos que estão visitando o seu site. Como eu falei, é baseado em tags, ou seja, a cada pedido do site faz uma requisição aos nossos servidores, e isso impacta diretamente o próprio carregamento do site. Nós temos 2 produtos, o Freemium, todo mundo pode entrar no bitbucket.com, fazer um sign-up, ele é em inglês, ele é voltado para o mercado internacional. E nós temos um produto Network, que é mais orientado à parte de publicidade, que é uma versão paga, e já temos nosso primeiro cliente internacional também, gerando receita. Até agora nós temos 3.000 sign-ups, tem mais ou menos 2 anos que a empresa aqui, o site está no ar, e quase 1.000 sites tagueados. E fiquei sabendo hoje de manhã que foi anunciado que nós somos o maior usuário do App Engine no Brasil e um dos maiores do mundo. E eu acho que em alguns critérios, o maior do mundo. Estamos fazendo próximo de 1 bilhão de requisições por mês, mais ou menos paid views, e nos nossos picos no horário fazemos 800 requisições por segundo. Que nem eu falei, eu vou fazer um brief overview de como funciona a ferramenta. A gente tem um usuário, muitas vezes é anônimo. Ele entra em algum site, faz a requisição da página de algum site, ele recebe o código HTML, e dentro desse código HTML tem uma tag JavaScript, que faz uma outra requisição ao App Engine. O App Engine coleta uma série de informações desse usuário, informações de URL, de referral, de IP, verifica os segmentos cadastrados para aquele site, e aí retorna o conteúdo, uma publicidade, alguma mensagem específica para aquele segmento. Quando a gente lançou o BitBuckets, a gente queria abraçar o cloud. Só que a gente queria aproveitar o que cada fornecedor de cloud tinha de melhor. Para a nossa camada de tags, que era uma camada missão crítica, precisava ser escalável, porque qualquer site, a qualquer minuto, vocês podem estar se cadastrando agora, instalando tag no site, eu não sei quantas requisições eu vou ter daqui a 5, 10, 20 minutos. Pode ter um site com centenas de milhões de page views instalando agora, eu tenho que estar pronto a responder isso. E o App Engine me proporciona isso. Eu durmo muito tranquilo à noite. Outra coisa é o tempo de resposta. Se a gente fosse... A ferramenta é mundial, a maioria dos nossos clientes são nos Estados Unidos e na Europa. E se a gente fosse contratar um data center, eu teria que contratar um data center em vários lugares, ou mais de um data center, e teria que ter um tempo de resposta bem aceitável. Porque se a gente demorar... O site tem o BitBucket instalado, vai demorar para carregar também. Para a parte de interface, a gente não tinha conhecimento de muitos programadores em Python quando a App Engine lançou, não tinha nem versão em Java em 2008. A gente elegeu também não colocar todos os nossos ovos na mesma cesta e também optamos em contratar o EC2 da Amazon para a nossa parte de extranet, que nada mais é de uma interface PHP com SSL, com uma série de configurações e relatórios para o dono do site. Por que a gente elegeu o App Engine? O BitBuckets ele é um projeto que nasceu dentro de uma empresa muito maior. A Predicta tem 120 pessoas, que é a empresa mãe. BitBuckets hoje tem 3 pessoas, e 2 estão por aí. A gente precisava fazer um deploy imediato. A gente não podia assinar contrato com o data center, não sabia como é que ia ser os servidores, a gente não sabia nem como é que ia ser o serviço. E se como era freemium, se determinada site começaram a pedir features que necessitava de hardware diferente. Então isso atraiu muita gente. A gente não tinha modelo comercial, a gente não sabia como a gente ia cobrar. Para ser sincero, a gente ainda está fechando como é que a gente vai cobrar. A ferramenta é um sucesso, mas tem muitas coisas que deram a nossa flexibilidade. O App Engine permitiu essa flexibilidade. Queríamos ser global. Fora a bandeirinha que aparece no site do BitBuckets quando vocês acessam do Brasil, ninguém sabe que a empresa é brasileira. A empresa é da Web 2.0. E quando alguém manda um e-mail para o suporte dizendo qual é a infraestrutura que vocês usam, a gente responde com 2 palavras: Google App Engine. Encerra o assunto. A natureza do nosso serviço é baseada em tags, então precisávamos de uma coisa escalonável. E a questão de credibilidade. Na nossa outra empresa, a gente tem que ficar mostrando vários diagramas, desenhos de rede, redundâncias, investindo centenas de milhares de reais em hardware. E hoje a gente mostra o loginho do foguete. E também porque a gente queria testar o cloud. Vou falar um pouquinho, isso aqui são números reais de um cliente nosso, de que pode acontecer. O tempo na escala horizontal e na escala vertical são requests por dia. Você pode ver que são mais ou menos um mês de dados, e você pode ver quando a gente começou esse cliente, a gente tinha uma média de 2,6 milhões de requests por dia. No nosso cálculo, se a gente fosse hospedar o sistema, a gente já conseguia atender 200 requisições por servidor por segundo. Então, aqui tem alguns picos que eu destaquei, que vocês podem ver, que a cada pico eu teria que fazer mais um investimento. Então, você vê que em 30 dias, eu teria que ter comprado pelo menos uns 5 web servers, e ali o pico que eu destaquei em roxo seria mais um database server. E com o App Engine, a gente só teve que botar o nosso número do cartão de crédito. Como eu falei, o Bitbuckets nasceu de uma empresa da Predict, que é uma empresa muito grande, 120 pessoas, com sistemas que fazem dezenas de bilhões de requisições por mês. A gente está empresa desde 2000, a gente entende muito bem o modelo tradicional de hosting. Hoje a gente tem 3 data centers separados pelo mundo. Nós temos mais ou menos 100 servidores que são gerenciados pela gente. E é um prazer, é uma satisfação trabalhar com a App Engine. Uma série de preocupações não existem mais. Claro, trazem outros desafios, mas é um passo bastante legal na parte de inovação. Outra coisa que nos permitiu foi o foco no negócio. O fato da gente não ter que se preocupar com infraestrutura, com data center, com redundância, com SLA, e só botar o nome do Google ajudou muito. Então a gente conseguiu focar na ferramenta e conseguimos nos adaptar muito bom. Em 2 meses depois que a gente lançou a ferramenta já tinha se mudado completamente. O projeto foi ágil, time ágil, isso facilitou muito também. E a questão, acho muito importante, é a credibilidade. Eu não sei quantos de vocês participam de congressos internacionais, mas muitas vezes, quando você fala que você é do Brasil, as pessoas não te dão muita credibilidade, muito menos se você está hospedado no Brasil. Uma vez que você diz que você está usando o Google, você está mostrando a sua ferramenta, você quebra uma série de barreiras. E a outra grande vantagem do cloud versus modelo tradicional é o controle de atividades críticas. Muitas vezes a gente queria lançar um feature na empresa tradicional, tinha que esperar comprar mais servidor, fazer teste de carga e tudo. No App Engine, esse deploy era imediato. Bem, a gente usa o App Engine desde setembro de 2008, se não me engano foi lançado em março ou abril de 2008, nós fomos um dos primeiros serviços a usar o App Engine. Não tinha Java, a nossa plataforma na outra empresa é Java, só tinha Python. Mas eu queria dizer um pouquinho qual foi a nossa experiência, algumas dicas que a gente teve. E eu coloquei o sem jabá aí porque eu sou bastante fã. O sucesso da empresa, do Bitbuckets hoje, que saiu na Time Magazine uns 2, 3 meses atrás, grande parte da responsabilidade é o pessoal da App Engine. Assim. Mesmo com recursos, tendo a capacidade de investir em inovação, esse projeto não nasceria se não fosse por serviço se não fosse pelo próprio App Engine. E a gente está ansiosíssimo pelo App Engine for Business, os features novos que o Pat falou aqui. A gente precisa de credibilidade, a gente tem contratos de SLA, ou seja, eu tenho uma redundância em cima do App Engine. Se o App Engine cair, eu tenho uma redundância. Isso é um negócio que eu não queria ter, é um custo que eu não preciso hoje. Outra coisa que a gente tem um grande desafio é a capacidade de importação e exportação de dados. Eu cheguei um pouquinho atrasado, eu não sei se o Pat falou sobre isso, mas imagino que deve ser um grande tema também aí. Outra coisa que a gente sente, eu vou mostrar depois mais um resultado, é que a gente vê que, pelo tempo de resposta dos servidores, que é uma coisa crítica para a gente, cada vez mais para todo mundo, ainda falta trabalhar um pouquinho nisso. Tem uns requests, por exemplo, da América do Norte, da Europa, são bastante rápidos, mas você pega a Ásia e a Austrália, tende a ser 3, 4 vezes mais lento e já perdemos alguns clientes por causa disso. E a gente também passou por uma outra situação aqui. Algumas cotas é só você botar o seu cartão de crédito, mudar o budget e não se preocupar mais. Mas tem algumas outras cotas que eles colocam por precaução, como exemplo, acesso ao Memcache, que você não tem essa capacidade de imediatamente trocar. E isso realmente apresenta um determinado risco. Acho que eles estão aumentando cada vez mais a transparência e aumentando cada vez mais a quantidade de cotas, mas é uma coisa a se planejar. Que nem eu falei aqui, a gente mantém total transparência com os nossos clientes. A gente contratou um serviço de monitoramento externo para fazer requisições de vários lugares do mundo para ver o tempo de resposta. Que nem eu falei, você vê que, por exemplo, na versão Bitbuckets On-Site, de Nova York, o tempo de resposta é menos de 100 milissegundos. É impressionante. Só que para a Austrália são quase 1 segundo. e no nosso sistema de network, chega a ser até mais crítico também. Você vê que é quase 8 vezes mais a mesma requisição com os mesmos dados sendo feito de outros lugares. Só para concluir, obrigado Google, obrigado Pat, vocês fizeram a diferente, o mundo é plano agora. Agora é a nossa vez agora do Brasil começar a mostrar o que a gente realmente tem. Para dica para vocês, que são analistas de infraestrutura, entrem no cloud, vejam o cloud, se adaptem. Tá? Muito obrigado, gente.
Obrigado. Thanks, Phillip. And just to conclude, we have Yara Sanger from Global Code.
Thank you very much. Bom, recentemente, a história toda da Global Code é uma história, a gente está completando 10 anos de Java agora, e a Global Code, ela tem, nós temos andado numa direção de estar cada vez mais global, cada vez menos especificamente trabalhando com uma plataforma e mais trabalhando com tecnologia de maneira geral. Então, o nosso portfólio de produtos Google, nós temos trabalhado bastante nisso, em aumentar, em trabalhar com o Google App Engine, em trabalhar com Android. Temos recebido um apoio gigante da Google, do Francisco Gioielli, do Alejandro Villanueva, do Google Technology User Group. E essa semana nós tivemos uma coisa muito bacana que aconteceu, que finalizou, que foi o primeiro concurso de Google App Engine para alunos Global Code. E o que significa um concurso de Google App Engine, né? O que nós estávamos buscando com esse concurso? Em nenhum momento, em todo momento durante o concurso, nós deixamos claro que o que a gente estava buscando não era que uma pessoa tivesse uma coisa genial, né, e fizesse um novo produto que vai ser lançado no mundo todo. Não era isso que a gente estava buscando. Quando nós fizemos o concurso, nós estávamos buscando que as pessoas colocassem em prática uma das coisas mais difíceis da vida, eu acho, que é começar um projeto e terminar um projeto. Nós, programadores, muitas vezes a gente está ali no meio, né? Você não está na criação do projeto e você não está na conclusão do projeto. Você desenvolve aquela parte específica do projeto. Mas o que a gente queria exercitar com isso, e eu acho que o Google App Engine é extremamente importante nesse sentido, porque ele provê essa infraestrutura gratuita, né? Quer dizer, ele de alguma maneira patrocina a sua ideia, né? Então, você tem que ter a ideia, você tem que implementar, mas a partir daquele momento você colocou no cloud e você não tem um custo mensal, você não tem uma grande complexidade. Para muitas linguagens, é uma coisa extremamente simples, né, de entrar no Eclipse e falar deploy no cloud. Então, se a gente parar para pensar o que seria colocar uma aplicação no ar sem ter essa infraestrutura, significa uma gama de conhecimentos grande. Então, com o concurso de Google App Engine, nós tivemos uma grande surpresa com o resultado desses projetos. Começou com projetos extremamente, né, nós recebemos desde projetos extremamente simples, sites praticamente estáticos, onde alguém está resolvendo algum problema ou concluindo um projeto. Então, um dos projetos que nós recebemos foi um projeto de pessoas de segundo colegial. Segundo colegial, o objetivo principal não era fazer uma grande aplicação na web, como muitas vezes nos projetos reais também não é. O objetivo era concluir com chave de ouro um projeto de automação residencial que eles exercitaram em 1 ano de aprendendo programação. Até sites extremamente complexos como XMPP, como um gerenciador financeiro que nós recebemos. Então, eu gostaria de agradecer a Google, o GTUG e a UNWI, que têm ajudado a difundir o conhecimento de Google App Engine. Parabenizar